Hey there, independent Scientologists. Discover a new perspective to your bridge by visiting ao-gp.org. Get in session with remote auditing using the Theta Meter. Are you curious about where you stand? Head on over to ao-gp.org now and take our free personality test. Join the growing group of independent Scientologists today.
Hi, and welcome to another AOGP Outside of the Church podcast brought to you by the Advanced Org of the Great Plains. That's us. I'm here with Arthur Moudakis, and we are going to do a podcast entitled The Purification Rundown, One Man's Story. And Arthur is on the Purification Rundown. And dare I say, it is an experience for you to do the Purification Rundown. What would you like to tell me about that experience, Arthur?
I think experience is a bit of an understatement. Thanks, John.
How would you typify it then, sir?
The really tricky thing about this is putting it into words. So I could share experiences I've had so far, and I'm still only at the first stage.
Yeah.
Like I haven't even got through that yet, which I find really incredible.
A weekend.
There's been a lot of mistakes. Yeah, there's been a lot of mistakes on the way. There's been some really intense experiences. Really intense experiences. And then even today, I think today is the most settled I'm feeling so far. But what I'm finding really weird about it, as intense as it is, I actually do not want to stop it, which is really unique. And I asked my partner today, because we're doing it together, I'm like, hey, as intense as this is, like, do you want to walk away from this? And she's like, no. And we've had some really heavy experiences in the last week. The last week feels like a year.
Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people on the Pure. But in it, the first week when I did it, was similar. It time, something happens to your perception of time in doing it as well, and that's the what's the word I want to use? I don't want to say the drugs, but the contaminants in the system tend to affect your perception of time a lot on it because they're coming out of the body.
And it's funny you say it like that, because where I'm at right now, so we just did day 7 today, and I only just finished up about an hour and a half ago, so it's still quite fresh for me at the moment. And you talking about time, it's it's like time is showing a new reality to me that I haven't seen before. And so it's almost like time as I knew it last week versus the way time's appearing today is really different. There's this, as spaced out as I feel, there's a new reality entering my being that I was never aware of. And hasn't even clarified yet. Like it's slow. Like I could see it in my eyes. My eyes, they're not clear, they're not blurry, but something's happening there, and I can't quite work out exactly what it is because it hasn't finished.
Yeah, it's a work in progress.
It's I've done a lot of silly things in my life, and drugs are really obvious when you take them. They show their effect immediately or within a few minutes. Whereas this, it has an effect, but you can't quite put your finger on it.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. It's one of the things with toxins in a body is it's sort of like, it's akin to a bookshelf that accumulates dust, or a brightly pigmented car that you start out with a bright red car or a bright yellow car, both of which are unstable pigments, and UV tends to affect them, and the next thing you know, you're like, wow, it's not as yellow as it used to be. It's not as
Yeah,
bright
yeah,
red as it
yeah.
used to be. That clear coat just magnifies the UV on it, and it dulls. Well, that's what happens with the body, and it's not really that noticeable until you do a
Mm,
purification rundown and you start getting this crap out of your system, and you're like, wow, my vision's gotten better because you didn't notice that it had gotten poorer over time, or your sense of smell, or your sense of taste, or hearing. I mean, it can be anything. I mean, there's 54 perceptions that Hubbard delineates that the body has. It's not the normal 6 or 7 that everybody thinks.
mm-hmm.
And some of these are very, very sublime, but yet they are still there. So, to your point, your vision will continue to change and get better as time goes on. What's affecting that could be a lot of things, but as far as the sense of time goes, to
That's
go
right.
back to that, the sense of time goes, the drugs in the system end up getting restimulated by being in your body over time. You might be sweating one day, and it's something that's been in there for a couple of decades, and out it comes again. And so you have all this timelessness that gets brought up in the person's case, their reactive mind, and it might be there for ages, albeit subtly. And so your sense of time is going to change as well. And the purification rundown, the point of it is to help bring you up to present time, because drugs pull you out of present time.
Well, can I share a really intense experience I had the other day?
Sure.
Um, where do I start? So I took the dosage, um, and then my day just didn't start out good at all. And I'm already, my emotions are just, I don't know, they're there, but they're not there. And I'm not completely present to some degree. But then I had an experience in the morning that really triggered me, and it just put me in a really poopy mood.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when I went into the purification run, I took the vitamins, did the running, and then everything just really turned on, and my emotions hit such an intense peak. I
Mm-hmm.
found myself in the sauna just rocking, and just words coming through. I had such disdain for this world.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, all I could hear was, fuck this world, and why are people so mean to me?
Mm-hmm.
Why is this going on? And I couldn't get out of it. It was the weirdest thing. I was so stuck in this position, but then something really weird happened. When I was younger, I used to rock myself to sleep
Mm-hmm.
as a really young kid, and I don't know why. It's just something I did. And then I found myself rocking in the sauna exactly as I would as a child, and the realization hit me then. The same anxiety I felt now in that regard was exactly the same as when I was a child. Exactly the same.
Yep.
And then during that one session, it slowly petered off. And like it flattened out in that one session. And then logic came in. Like once I went through that, and that was probably a good hour and a half. I'm crying. I'm just really resentful, like extreme emotion,
Mm-hmm.
extreme. And then logic just came in. Like this little logical part just came in. It's just like, wow. Like the realization of giving myself to so many people and then resenting them when it goes sour.
Mm-hmm.
And just the realization of, um, I don't know, the only thing the thing, Christ sacrificed himself for our sins,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then for some reason that came to me, and it's just like, my God, you've sacrificed yourself for other people's sins so many times.
Mm-hmm.
When are you going to start honoring your own,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense?
Mm-hmm. Well,
Um,
that's some drug or drugs getting restimulated and then running out because the niacin is in the good guy vitamins that you're taking are pushing this stuff out of your system. And that is a prime example of a toxin that's in your system popping back up and restimulating the person, and then it flattening out or playing out and being pushed out of the system. And that's, it is, the purification rundown is a form of auditing, because you're restimulating something and running it out. That's what auditing does. That's what the Purif does. But the Purif does it through toxins being in the body, and things are going to pop up, and you're going to have to run through them, but they will resolve, never to return, as long as you don't take any more of that, whatever it is, whatever the toxin was. And some are obvious. Radiation is a little more obvious than something like this, but once it's run out, it's run out. And it would be good to do, the planet isn't a terribly clean place, especially where humans are at, so it would be a good idea to do a Purif maybe every, I don't know, depending on how many toxins you get into, but I mean, you could do a Purif every 5-10 years. I haven't done one since 2003, and I was just thinking about it this morning. I was like, I need to get an infrared sauna and hit the Purif again.
And they're cheap. Yeah, and they're cheap. To set it all up, it was really cheap.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And they're like in the US, they're all over the place on like Facebook Marketplace and stuff like that. I wouldn't go with a 1-seater. I would go with a 4-seater at a minimum, 6-seater, so you're not so cloistered by, the small space and stuff like that, because that's hard to deal with, especially when you've got a drug trip turning on. But, it can be done on a cheap budget.
Well, this is what I found interesting as well. Okay, so I just shared a really deep experience I went through, right? Mm-hmm. But the time flew past. Mm-hmm. The time, the ones that are hard is when nothing's turning on.
Yeah.
They're the hard ones, because you're sitting in the chair thinking like, fucking come on. Mm-hmm. Yesterday I was so agitated because nothing was happening. I'm like, come on. I'm actively seeking something to happen. Mm-hmm. so
right, so you feel there's some forward progress type of a thing, and you can't really control where in the layers of the onion that this stuff is gonna come out from.
It's a mystery bag. It's a big question mark.
Yeah.
Like there's no telling where it's going to take you at all. And like, even from that experience, I can't even say what substance it was.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be able to tell you either. All we know is it turned on, you ran it out, and it's gone.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. And the realizations that came with it, I don't know, you had to relive it to let it go, in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it's very similar to how Dianetics works. It's
very similar process. Without an auditor, the niacin and the vitamins and the sauna are your auditor.
Yeah.
And you're the PC. It just writing it through.
Yeah. And I know people that have had pretty strong street drug history or pharmaceutical, prescription drug histories, and they'll have trip after trip after trip after trip after trip after trip, and then it starts to trickle off, and then just, one day it's just gone. Nothing.
Yep.
So that's proof positive that it works. Is you just have to hold your position and tough it out and stay in the sauna for the 3 to 4 hours, and make sure you run and you get your vitamins in your system and the niacin in your system, and the rest will take its course by sweating it out and drinking lots of water.
Well, some of the positive stuff that's happened is my skin. Like, my skin is starting to clear up, and it's really soft.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're going to have baby soft skin. Yeah. It's really amazing how soft it
gets. It's bizarre. My lung capacity, because I've been smoking since I was 18. I'm like 47 now. So actually next year, how much is that? 30 years as a smoker. On day 3, I think it was, or day 4, I was lying in bed and I yawned, and I was like, oh my God, I managed to fit a whole yawn in.
Mm-hmm.
Like my lungs just opened right up, and they haven't opened up like that for years
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
as a smoker. Um, Even running. Yesterday, for the first time, I ran an entire oval 3 times without a break.
Right.
And I was able to breathe it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's incredible. And we're talking, we started this Thursday last week.
Mm-hmm.
Today's Thursday, 1 week, 7 days,
Mm-hmm.
exactly 7 days.
How about pickleball? How's that going?
So I took last week off because we had a comp the week before. So I've only gone to pickleball twice this week. I went last night and then on Monday, and I'm a little sore from that. I have to say. But I have tennis
find
elbow
yourself
from
doing
playing
more?
pickleball. Uh, Look, I actually really struggled this week because my mind is reconfiguring itself.
Yeah.
I actually played really well, and I wasn't high, I wasn't low, I was just there, just playing the game kind of thing. So my usual uptone wasn't quite there, and I think it's going to be a little while before it is.
Yeah. I would imagine, being in
and
the
I'm
sauna 3 to
curious.
4 hours a day, that takes a lot out of you.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe to some people, I might have just seemed a little off. And if I did seem a little off, it's because I was. But not in a I've had a shit day kind of way. I'm just a little absent at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Have you noticed anything with your recall yet, as far as your ability to remember things and everything like that?
Well, since auditing, since the work we did, my recall has been really good ever since then.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't really noticed anything yet. Yep.
Give
In
it
that
some
sense,
time.
I haven't noticed anything yet. Yep. But I have this weird thing on the bridge of my nose.
Mm-hmm.
The other day, maybe 3 days ago, I just felt this big sensation at the tip of my nose between my eyes, and it was probably the size of a tennis ball. Just this weird sensation. And then I started rubbing it, and as I was rubbing it, I could see a face. It was like a really ugly face. Every time I touched it, this face would appear in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then, me being me, I'm like, you cheeky motherfucker.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you're occupying. And I'm like, you cheeky thing. And
Well,
it's
I
and the
wouldn't go.
funny
I
thing
wouldn't go that
is,
far. I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, there are reasons.
well,
There are reasons for that would cause that typically. But what's true for
yeah,
you is true for you as well.
it just had this familiarity about it, right?
Yeah, sure.
And its face as well depicted a part of my character,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought was really bizarre. And
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't a pleasant face. It was actually quite a grotesque face.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow. And what was funny was it was the size of the tennis ball, and then by the end of it, it shrunk probably. And this is in the one session. It shrunk to maybe a pea, and then this little lump of formed on the bridge of my nose,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't quite make the connection here as to what has happened there. I used to wear glasses, and part of me is thinking it might actually be from the metal band on my glasses rubbing on the bridge of my nose.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can kind of put it to. And the funny thing is, it's still there, but in the last 2 sessions, it's grown and then shrunk. Yesterday, it was like the size of a match head. Today, it's back to pea size. Like it hasn't completely come out, and it's got me so stumped. It grows and then it shrinks. It grows and then it shrinks.
Well, and that will probably continue for anywhere between a day to a few days, as whatever is there is being pushed out by the niacin and the vitamins and stuff. but that is a very, very common thing. In the physical anatomy department that you'll see for people. I don't know how many times I've seen it delivering a Purif. I never had anything like that personally myself, but
sure,
I have seen it a lot with other PCs that we've delivered to, and that's exactly how it works. Is it'll show up as things get pushed out, and as they get pushed out, it'll go away, and it's getting down into the subcutaneous region quite a bit, the deep tissue type of a thing, and once it's run out, it won't be there anymore.
It's just really fascinating at how it appears so quickly, and then and it changes. We're talking a couple of hours. If I put it on a time lapse, you'd see it grow and shrink.
Yeah.
Within an hour, 2 hours. Like it's mind-boggling at how I'm kind of sort of realizing at how fast the body actually operates under the right environment. Even taking the niacin, by the time I'm out the door, it's already started.
Yeah, it doesn't take long
amongst
at
all the vitamins I'm taking, it's already turned on, and I'm just like, my God, my body's already processing it straight away within a few minutes.
Yeah, if you were to put it
and I
under
think I
your
might be a
tongue, it would
little.
be even faster.
Yeah, I think I might be a little addicted to the niacin. Just
well,
quietly.
It is what causes things to be pushed out and everything like that, and it does act very fast, and you'll find that it acts faster and faster as you continue on the Purif, and the dosage increases. But that is the prime mover in getting things to get pushed out. And so it starts working real quick, and then you go out and you do the run, and now it's really getting into your system, and your metabolism is pushing it into all the capillaries in the body and everything like that, and off you go to the races. And you get to a point towards the end of the Purif, no matter what the dosage is there's nothing else to push out.
Yeah.
And that's when you're done.
Yep.
Whatever length of time
Well,
that is.
Yeah, and the last 3 days has been really interesting because the dose has been the same. So on the first day at that dose, it was a real mental, emotional experience, because I've had quite a few very emotional experiences through this process. But then once the mental stimuli turned off, and once the emotional aspects turned off, then it became really physical. Because the second day, the niacin hit me even harder than it did the previous day. And then today, the niacin's hit me even harder again, probably like more over my body, and it's the same dose, but the mental stimuli hasn't been there. So it's like it's gone from the mental stimuli, now it's purely physical. The areas that my body are ready to clean out are now opening up to clean out. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen tomorrow, because at first I just felt it lightly around my ears and my head, but emotionally it was a full-on experience. Then the second day I felt it really strong in my ears and my head, and then to my shoulders, whereas today I felt it waist up. The top half of my body just turned right on. So I'm really curious to see what's going to happen tomorrow around this. It's like it's reaching its peak at this dose.
Right.
It's slowly opening my body up. Yeah.
I mean, it would be akin to doing auditing on a particular subjective subject, where you just keep chipping away, and then you've hit the end phenomena on that particular subject, and you have a release. Well, this is that. You've got to get the physical side of it out, and then you've got to get the objective side, which is the physical side, and then the subjective side is what remains. And then when that's done, okay, we're flat at whatever milligrams the person is at, and now we move it up and then we,
Mm.
wash, rinse, repeat. Okay, what's turned on that day? What's turned on the next day at this? What's turned on the next day at this same dosage? What's turned
Mm-hmm.
on? No, nothing's turned on. Okay, we're flat at that point. Okay, let's bump it up another 100 milligrams. Okay, and it might, it could go on for days, or nothing could turn on at all. The next bump up
Mm.
in it, either objectively or
Sure.
subjectively. But as earlier on, as opposed to later on, you have a lot of stuff turn on, and then it becomes a little less, more, and a little less
Mm.
more, and then
Mm-hmm.
you'll have a big
Mm-hmm.
something big will come out,
Yep.
and then there might not be anything for a couple of days, and it's sort of like you can't pull the truck out of the mud with a small little tow truck. You have to get the diesel tow truck in there, and that is, uh, you know, 800 milligrams of niacin type of a thing. And okay, now we can pull
Mm.
this thing out of the mud, and we're getting somewhere. And that's how that happens. And then these bigger things, whatever they are, if they're there at all, will then get pushed out. But you might have 3 or 4 days where it's just upping the dosage
Mm.
100 milligrams at a time and
Mm-hmm.
nothing's happening. You think, well, I might be, oh, wait a minute. I'm not done
Yeah.
yet.
Uh-oh.
Or it could be 5 or 6 days at each 100 milligrams, raising it. Sometimes we have to do 50
Increments.
with people, depending on what their
Yep.
drug history is, because, that's why Hubbard says, okay, let's do it at 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams, 300 milligrams, 400
Mm-hmm.
milligrams.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you do a lot all at once, then you get inundated with all of this stuff all at once, which is what happened with you. And
Well,
boom.
yes, that was a really full-on experience. So day two, because we bought the niacin as a powder, we didn't buy it in a pill form, so I actually have to weigh it up.
Right.
And I didn't realize, but my scales were set to ounces, not grams. And so I did 0.25 ounces.
That's
Now,
right.
for anybody that doesn't know, an ounce is 28 grams.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So I did a quarter of an ounce, which is what, 28, 40, about 7 grams of niacin.
yeah.
And and not only that, but I also weighed the vitamin C on the same scale as well. So
yeah.
instead of 200 milligrams, I vomited so much.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that came out of my bowels was mind blowing, and the sauna, wow, because I've tampered with psychedelics in past,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a full-on experience. Both me and my partner are just wailing, "Oh my god!" Just
Yeah.
this massive overwhelm. Our
Yeah.
bodies are on extreme fire, head to toe,
Mm-hmm.
itching, scratching, wailing, crying,
What not to
laughing. What
do.
the hell? So, if anybody does this, please be very cautious on what you dose yourself.
Right. Yeah. And it was an honest mistake, but that gives you some insight into how much, and it's an interesting unintentional experiment in how much stuff can be pushed out, given the error that occurred as far as the dosage on the niacin and everything like that. And that is a cautionary tale on why you want to do this on a gradient at 100 milligrams, because it is an incredibly unpleasant experience to do that sort of thing. You can't just take a handful of niacin, not take any other vitamins, and because you're going to have your ass handed to you. And that shows you how much stuff is in there. Now, another thing I wanted to mention, and it's not part of the purification rundown, but I highly recommend doing a gallbladder cleanse after the
Mm.
purification rundown, and that requires uh, all natural things. You have olive oil, fresh grapefruit, half an hour stationary, and Epsom salts. And
Mm.
I'll post the recipe on the back. I did it. I wasn't on the Purif. This was before I did my Purif by about a year, and I did it, and I had hundreds of gallstones pushed out through these simple natural ingredients. And I just had to sit still for half an hour, and I could feel the apertures opening up and everything. And then went to the toilet, and then the next morning, and I had a couple hundred pea-sized gallstones that came out totally painless.
Mm-hmm.
I had another guy do it years later, an Italian guy, and I told him about this because he was about to have gallbladder surgery because he was in intense pain. And I had him do this, and he called me back the next morning, and he said, I got a big green golf ball that came out last night in the toilet. And I was like, hey, great. And he says, I don't need to do the gallbladder surgery anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Interesting.
it really
Interesting.
works. And there's another cleanse that you can do if it's still on Amazon. I don't remember the product, and you'd have to search and see, but there's one that clears out your pituitary gland.
Oh, the pineal.
The pineal,
Pituitary or
sorry,
pineal?
sorry, pineal. That's what
Yeah,
I meant.
yeah,
Pineal, the
yeah.
pineal gland, and it pushes out all these heavy metals, and you can taste these heavy metals coming out of the system. I am not saying do it on the Purif. Do not do it on the Purif. I would wait until after
Mm-hmm.
the Purif to do this, but it really, really works, and it pushes this crap out of your system. If there's anything in there right after a Purif, there may not be. There may not be. But if you wanted to double check, you could do that. I would do the gallbladder cleanse regardless, because it's something where you have to use the grapefruit juice and the olive oil and the Epsom salts to get the sphincters open to allow this stuff to pass. And I mean, wow, it makes a big difference. Both of those do.
I think so far from the experience I've been having this week, I think the gallbladder cleanse will be a walk in the park compared to this.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to literally not move at all for half an hour and lay down,
Yeah.
and it doesn't taste good. I'll tell you
Yes.
that much. It doesn't taste good. I also did a cleanse with a
Mm.
chiropractor when I lived in Clearwater, where I was drinking 8 ounces of Epsom salt water. It was 2 tablespoons in an 8-ounce glass of Epsom salts, and in less than somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes, I had to run to the bathroom and and
Mm.
do the number 2 position. And it just cleaned out the bowels like nobody's business, because you have a lot of crap that's on the lining of the bowels and everything like that that has been there for a really long time. And it really made a big difference doing that,
Mm.
and doing the Purif, because that's where you absorb the minerals and everything that you eat. It's not the stomach just chews it
Mm-hmm,
up for the
mm-hmm.
most part. Anyway, so those are things that you can, additional things that you can do. I can't speak to any other types of cleanses other than the ones that I've done, but those
Sure,
are two
sure.
good ones to do afterwards, because that's really what the purification rundown is a 2 to 6 week cleanse, depending on what your drug history and alcohol history are. Um, and some people, alcohol comes out and they get drunk again. I've seen that too as well,
Mm-hmm,
if they
mm-hmm,
have drank a lot of heavy liquor. Beer not so much, but you'll see that it's different types of drunkenness come out from different types of alcohol. Vodka is one, tequila is another, rum's another, gin's another, and they all have their different quote unquote highs that remanifest
mm-hmm,
out of a person. In some cases, it's kind of rare with alcohol, but in some people, if they've had a lot of it, it shows up.
mm-hmm. Interesting. Because see, even before this, like every year, I'll probably clean my bowels maybe once or twice a year. It's like a certain heaviness just builds up, um,
Yeah.
just from eating what just from eating, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's shitty food or good food, it builds up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time I did one, the smell that came out of me was just incredible.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine it. And what I'm finding with this process, and I don't know if it's the vitamin C, but when I took the high dose vitamin C, I was amazed at a smell I've never smelt before. So on one hand, like the high dose vitamin C, and just a bit of a warning to people, vitamin C can really mess you up.
Yeah, yeah,
It messed me up big time.
yeah, yeah. The acid
Yeah,
is
and
is
the
is tough
stuff
on the
that
stomach.
oh, it was full on. Like the, it's such a roller coaster, this experience, but I'm not regretting any of it. You know, despite the intensities, the way those intensities resolve in the same sitting is just really incredible. Like
Mhm,
it takes you there and then it brings you back.
mhm.
And even with my mess up on day two, I don't regret it at all. It wasn't enough to scare me off the process, because even though I really messed everything up, it took me days to get my smell back to normal, where things wouldn't want to make me vomit just from smelling it, especially the cow mag. Like that one was really hard, because just the smell of vinegar, it
Yeah.
just made me want to throw up.
Now, here I was going to mention this to
Yeah.
you the other day after you said, do I have to do the vinegar? And I said, well, this is what the vinegar does in this whole process. One of
Yes.
the one
Yes.
of the interesting things, and this goes to um, uh, a former father-in-law of mine was a chiropractor, and he used to do this reflexology. Well, he still does, where you could find out if a person was adverse to something. You would have them put whatever the object was, and this really works. This isn't bullshit. Whatever the object was, you put it in there. You have them put it in their left hand, and then you have them hold the right arm out. And if he can, if in he's try and hold your arm stable, and if he can push, and you're sitting here thinking, yeah, well, he's not going to be able to push my arm down. If you're allergic to it or you're
Mm,
adverse to it
mm-hmm.
in some way, your arm just goes down and you can't control it at all. I mean, you just pushes it
That's
down. You're
right.
trying to hold the arm up. It is a really cool tech. And the reason why I bring that up is that you'll find that apple cider vinegar, ACV, people are very adverse to it that have a lot of toxins in their system because it is anti to what their body has become accustomed to. And you can do that test with them and have them hold it in their hand and do that, and their arm will go down. You get them through the Purif and you have them hold it in their hand, and now they can hold it up because now things have been switched. The body
Mm.
accepts it.
So is that a form of muscle testing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
Because
can find
yeah,
out
yeah.
lots of data with it. I don't know or understand all of it. I'm not a chiropractor, but it is a really neat tech to see what somebody is allergic to.
Well, if we could just go on a side thingy around muscle testing, I learned muscle testing years ago,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of different ways you can do muscle testing. And one thing I used to do was around food, especially because it's really hard to work out what your body actually accepts food wise.
Mhm.
And so, what I used to do, there's a really cool technique where you literally just rub your fingers together really lightly.
Mhm.
And then if something your body doesn't want, all of a sudden it'll go really gritty,
Yeah.
really
Yeah, he did that
like it
too.
kind of sticks, right? But
Right.
then when your body accepts it, it's baby smooth.
Uh-huh.
And so I went through the supermarket just putting my hand on foods
Hmm.
and then doing the and then I actually worked out what my body enjoys and what it doesn't.
Right.
And so
Now,
I was able to create a diet around that.
right. And this leads into an area that most people will be squeamish on. And when I say most people, I would say 99.9% of the people would be squeamish on this. But since we're on the topic, it's an interesting thing to
Yep.
point out.
Yep.
Supposedly, supposedly, and I am not confirming, I am not denying this. You can look into this. The body is a form of computer. Okay.
Mm,
And and this is not Scientology data, but it is an interesting thing to bring up in the podcast. The body is a computer, and if the body is having a problem that it needs to resolve, much like a computer has input and output ports, okay? You put data into it and you tell it you want it to process that data and output the result, okay? This is how it's like a computer. If the body has something like, let's say an allergy, or let's keep it really simple. Let's say the body has athlete's foot. Okay. Body knows it has athlete's foot. When the body creates urine, and this is I've seen this to be true. I bet you know where I'm going with this. You can take the urine that comes out of your body if you have athlete's foot and put your feet in that urine, and it will relieve your athlete's foot, for which there is no known cure. I've done it.
Not just athlete's foot.
Yeah, not just athlete's foot,
a
whole bunch of stuff. It is giving the quote unquote antidote as the output because it knows and has tested. Your body is its own testing lab. And now I cannot confirm or deny this. I have listened to podcasts where one gentleman, whatever his body problem was, and I'm not saying do this at home. I'm not saying not do this at home, but your urine is it's free of any disease. It's antiseptic, okay, when it comes out. And he would put his urine in orange juice and drink it, and his hair he was an early graying person. He did this for a couple of weeks, and his hair went back to being black. I have no explanation for that, and maybe it's an isolated thing, but I do find it really freaking interesting. I'm not in any rush to be drinking my own urine, by the way.
This is the first time we've ever discussed something like this. Let's do a separate podcast on this because I could share a lot about this topic.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting
hell
topic.
of a lot.
Bodies are bodies.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is. It's very fascinating. And it's something that, if you look at it and you go, okay, you can either buck the system, and a lot of Scientologists, that I've run into, independent Scientologists, whatever you want to call them, they kind of go, bodies are bodies, and they don't take care of them. But if you get in tune with it and you understand some of these really interesting phenomena that people have observed and noted, I do this, I get this, I do this, I get this from the body and everything. They are not necessarily complex, but they are also very in tune with a lot of things. And if you know these things, it might save your life. Very interesting topic.
The body is incredible. One thing, let's definitely do a podcast on that. That'll be a nice controversial
write
one.
That one down.
That'd be good fun. Yeah, I've written it down.
Yeah. So,
but
that's
one thing I've realized about the body. Oh, sorry, go.
No, that's right. Go ahead.
One thing and probably in the last 6 months, this has come really clear to me. The body doesn't lie. It cannot lie.
Yeah.
It doesn't understand how to lie. And the funny thing is, the body tells, and this is why muscle testing works, because the body cannot lie, right? Now, if I make my body verbally lie, it's still telling the truth because I'm telling it to lie.
Right.
And so it can't lie.
Right.
Yeah. So, so people get antacid appear with certain foods, right? And the body's telling you such a direct message, I can't consume this. It cannot lie. It's telling you by giving you an upset belly that what you're eating is no good for you. And it blows my mind that there's pills you can take, right, to prevent that from happening. And the body's still telling the truth because you're making it consume a lie on top of a truth.
Right. Your altruism.
To settle it. It's incredible. And And I think even if we adapt that to the purification process, my body is in a position where it's so vulnerable. It's telling me truths even I find hard to accept.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and
It's
that's how
so
intuitive it
mind-boggling.
is. Yeah, that's how intuitive it is. And what you're doing in doing the purification rundown is you're removing these toxins that are adding a number into the series of numbers that the body is adding up, and it's causing a different output than what should be there, because you've got thetan, spirit, thetan, mind, body, and all of these things are interconnected. If you're not in the body's not going to cause you any problems. But the thing is if you're driving the car, you're somewhat at the effect of the car that you're driving, because you're in it or you own
That's
it.
right.
And there's a liability with owning that body, taking care of that body. What you put in the car,
That's right.
you don't put sugar in the gas tank, you put gas in the gas tank. There's certain things you have to do to maintain it, give it a tune up, that type of a thing, wash it.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a car, if you take care of the body, it runs better. If you take care of a
Yep.
car, even if you wash it and you imbue it with create and or what we call theta, what you're granting it beingness, you're granting it life, it runs better.
Mm-hmm.
And early on, we don't know about these datums about what drugs do to the body, what colorants do, what injections for viruses, you name it, are in there, and what they do to the body. And then you find out about the Purif technology and Scientology neurodynamics drug rundown, the OT drug rundown, and then you go, okay, so in the beginning, it's a physical, subjective thing. These drugs affect the body, but at the other end of the spectrum, on the OT scale of things, you find out that a lot of the things that you think that are drugs causing things, the drugs are causing them, but they're merely re-stimulators for things
Mm,
that you're unaware of and much greater. And that
mm,
when those influences are taken care of on the OT drug rundown, you come to see that these drugs don't necessarily do much but re-stimulate something far greater. And when that is removed, you don't have anywhere near the restimulation. I mean, there's no restimulation at all if it's done right, because drugs are nothing new in this universe, because
mm-hmm.
the body creates its own drugs to motivate
That's right.
it
Yeah.
to do things. If I eat a particular thing, I feel happy. If I drink a particular thing, I feel happy. If I work out, I feel happy. If I mean, what was it, sixth grade, we were learning about the different types of drugs. And on day one, they were like, there are uppers and there are downers. And people take downers and then they want to take uppers because
Yeah.
they're too down, or they take downers. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? Why would people ever do this? Well, there's a big reason for this. But the body does the same thing. The body does the same thing. If you sit around on the couch all the time and you don't do anything, you're going to be depressed, because the body rewards
That's
you.
right.
It's unfortunately, it's a little Pavlovian, but the body rewards you if you reward the body by moving the body. You're the puppeteer moving the body around, and the body says, hey, thanks for taking me to the gym. Hey, thanks for going out for a walk. Hey, thanks for standing out amongst the flowers and smelling the flowers. That was really great. Or,
Yep. Yep.
hey, that was awful, all that crap you put in me last night at the bar. I feel like shit, and I'm going to let you know. Run to the bathroom and throw up in the toilet.
Yep.
This is,
Yep.
so
I've
it's
had a few of those this week.
yeah, right. So that and then the Purif subtly reminds you that, you remember back in 1993 when you did that silly thing. Well, here it is again.
Yep. 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 It's it's an incredible experience, I have to say. And like while we're talking, like I'm processing and it's like there's a recalibrating going on, and I haven't quite recalibrated yet.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that will
I think
continue
that's
somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks. It'll be done. Typically.
yeah, that's right. Like today is probably the best. Well, it's probably the most settled I've been so far.
And that's at this particular dosage. So we can say at this point,
yes.
things are better after stirring up the bottom of the fish tank, and the filter has pulled everything for the most part out of the water. I haven't seen your report yet for today, but has pulled it out, and the water is for the most part a lot clearer than it was the last few days. Okay, now we're going to put our hands deeper into the bottom of the fish tank, and we're going to stir up even more that sediment that's even further down instead of an inch down. And then the water gets cloudy again, and we put in a new filter into the filtration system, and a couple days go by and the water is even more clear. And we're like, wow, this is the best it looks. Okay, now let's go down even deeper. That's how it works. I mean, that's quite literally a great analog.
Yeah. And it's funny you say it like that, because my initial interpretation of it was, why don't I just go higher to start with? Why don't I just get it out of the way?
You can't, because it's a
I know.
gradient approach. You can't. You saw what happened on day 2. Yeah,
I know.
You can't. That's why gradients, this universe has one extremely critical law. Evel Knievel did not try. I don't know how many of our listeners don't know who he is, but Evel Knievel was this guy who would take this big old motorbike, and I'm not talking about, a motocross motorcycle. I'm talking big ass Harley. I mean, hard metal back in the 70s. And this guy would jump school bus after school bus after school bus, and lots of other things. And a friend of mine was best friends with Evel Knievel's son. So I had the inside dope on everything and everything like that. Evel Knievel knew about gradients and intention. And he did not try to jump 20 school buses before he had jumped 10, because he didn't know what he could do and what he couldn't do. And he was in the hospital a lot because he skipped gradients. He even tried to jump a canyon in a rocket ship. That didn't work either. You can find that on YouTube. But that's the thing is gradients apply to everything. And if you start out shallowly and you stir up the fish tank a little bit, filter it out, stir up the fish tank a little bit more and filter it out, eventually there's nothing to stir up anymore at the bottom of the fish tank, and it's entirely clean. Maybe get some algae off the side, something like that. But you're creating a whole new ecosystem for your body. And I would strongly recommend as well, after the Purif, making sure that you take a lot of the proper biologicals to get into your system to get your gut refreshed with the good guys as well after going through a Purif.
Actually, while I'm going through this, would charcoal be a bad thing to take?
I don't think it would hurt, because it's gonna suck up impurities in the system. That's what it does. But but
it takes the good stuff too.
It takes the good stuff too, and you don't really want to have any. You don't want to draw down the body's ability to fight anything off. But I mean, you can afterwards. I don't know that there would be anything there. It's a rather intense and rather quick process, as like you were saying earlier. You get it turned on and then it turns off, and then you walk out and you're like, wow, we got through that, but it's done. So, there are lots of things, and this is just one really good way to get it done intensively and get it over with. And then you can go do other things if you want to go do other things to clear out anything else. But I think that you'll find that there's a lot less there after the Purif than there would have been if you tried some other cleanse, for example, and hadn't done a Purif. But you really wouldn't know without doing a Purif and using that as a baseline. So, and the Purif isn't a solution to everything either. It isn't a solution to everything. Its purpose is to get pollutants out of the body that hinder a person's ability to get the most out of auditing. That is its purpose. Period. That's what it's for.
but even on that, like what I'm noticing happening to my body, surely it's got to do way more than we think it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Way more.
We did. It's just like the reactive mind. You and I didn't get an owner's manual from the doctor, 10 years after we were born that said, this is your body and this is what it can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very simple but yet complex and accurate device. And this is what it needs. This is what it doesn't need. And these are the diagnostic programs that it can provide, that you can use in order to get answers to your questions. And if we just knew what the diagnostics were, that would be great. And you could figure everything else out.
Yeah.
And like reflexology and muscle testing and the urine quote unquote therapy and all this stuff. But when I heard that the first time with the urine thing, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense because that's the body's output. As far as one of the two, fecal is the other way. But I think we talked in a podcast a few weeks ago where they have sensors in the sewage systems where they can tell what drugs people are taking from the fecal matter that goes through the sewer. And I mean, they have diagnostics for this that, there probably is a lot of data that we aren't privy to because we don't have a full testing lab to test, but they've got it down there in the sewers and it sends it out Wi-Fi to some pharmaceutical company. And they're like, send more Prozac to Australia. They're buying it like mad. Or, whatever it is. I don't think Prozac's even an item on the market anymore, but your body does the same thing.
I think you could still get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't hear about it that much anymore, but that's the other thing is that if you take one of these multivitamins, I talked to a guy that used to work in the sewer system. He says, what we see the most of in the sewers? And I said, rings. He says, no, we do see a lot of rings that people drop down into their toilet or sink or whatever. He says, what we see the most of by far? I said, no, what? He said, because I always ask people, what's the strangest thing you've ever experienced in your job? What's the weird thing? And he said, multivitamins. And I was like, shut the front door. He says, no, we're talking shovelful after shovelful after shovelful of multivitamins. He says they do not get digested and they get shat out.
Interesting.
I thought, that's really interesting. That's why I asked that question, because there's always some weird thing that you would never think of, that somebody is in a place you've never been, in a job you've never been, and there's these little pieces of data, multivitamins. That's why you want to take your minerals and your vitamins in some metabolizable form. Like you said, the niacin is in a powder. Your body can metabolize that. It can't break down the multivitamins, apparently, well enough that you get anything out of them. So you're literally shitting your money away for no reason, because you're only getting a fraction of what's in there, if it could digest it at all. Multivitamins.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we spent probably about $800 for two of us.
Yeah.
On vitamins, but we didn't buy multivitamins. We bought each vitamin individually. So we actually have iron, we actually have a copper, we actually have a manganese, we actually have magnesium in the powder form, we actually have the calcium in the powder.
That's what you want.
We have everything we could find. I mean, it's hard to find powders. Interestingly, vitamin A is hard to find.
It is.
That was a struggle.
It is. In America, it is
like
as well.
Once we run out of this, we're going to have to order it. We can't just buy it off the shelf.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And actually looking at pharmacies, it's so hard to find just vitamin D. It's so hard to find just zinc. It's so hard to find just one individual vitamin or mineral. it blows my mind. I never realized the reality of that until I started doing this. Because even just getting the vitamins together took us a lot of effort. Like there's been so many obstacles in the way to get this thing done. It's really freaky.
Yeah, it's
It's
always been a
really
struggle to get
freaky.
at certain times of the year. It's difficult to find certain vitamins when you're doing the Purif in person, and I would be
Yeah.
because we supply the vitamins on a Purif rundown when they do it in the org. And different times of
Yep.
year, certain vitamins would be hard to get, and forget about it in the U.S. You're lucky if you found over half of them in a powdered form. You really have to dig deep, go down rabbit holes to find it. And Peter
Yeah.
Gilliam's was one of the places that we used to be able to get a lot of that stuff, and then that became unavailable for a while. I don't know if it exists now or not. It came back,
Okay.
and he was LRH's go-to guy. And a lot of the purists in the orgs back in the 70s, 80s, and even into the 90s and early 2000s bought their stuff from Peter Gilliam's vitamin shop in LA, because
Mm-hmm.
they bought it in bulk, created in bulk, and refined what they got to where it was of extreme quality. Because I mean, most vitamins, unless they're liquid like E, most vitamins are
Mm-hmm.
in a granular form to begin with, and then they just press them into a tablet form, or they take that powder and they put
That's
it
right.
into a digestible capsule. And the digestible capsule thing
Mm-hmm.
is another thing people say, oh, it's fine. Yeah, stay away from that. It's not, they're not good
Mm-hmm.
for you. You want it in a powder. If you can put it under your tongue, put it under your tongue, because it can be digested
Mm-hmm.
a lot quicker. And some vitamins require another vitamin, or like apple cider vinegar, like for magnesium, for absorption.
Yeah.
You have to know about these things, because otherwise into the sewage system it goes, and the body goes rejected because we can't use it. Just like when you take too much vitamin C and your urine
Mm-hmm.
turns yellow, that is the vitamin
Mm-hmm.
C excess going into your urine, because the body says, I got all I need. So you're taking too
Mm-hmm.
much. 2,500 milligrams on vitamin C is pretty much tops. Smaller the body, it's less
Mm-hmm.
than that. Larger the body might be a little bit more. I can do 3,500 and it doesn't do it. But
Mm-hmm.
these, and it drives me nuts when people get really significant on vitamins. And their health
Mm-hmm.
nuts. But there are a lot of things, little devil in the detail, minutia things you need to know about vitamins, about vegetables, what your body can digest, what it can't, what's good for one. There's a fabulous book out there, by the way, if it's still in publication. It was published in the 90s, called Eat Right for Your Blood Type. And
Mm-hmm.
that book listed different blood types come from different geographical backgrounds. Therefore, the bodies require different nutrients in order to do well. And it's very, very accurate in, let's say you came from Eastern Europe, or you came from Southeast
Mm-hmm.
Asia, or you came from, because different flora and fauna and animals are in different areas. They don't all exist in all of the same places. So
Yeah.
that's
Yep.
that's another good book to help find out what your body needs and what it doesn't, and it tells you what you need with those particular foods to digest those. Um, I try not to pay too much attention to it, but I probably should pay more the older I get. Anyway, great data.
It's a hard one. And like even going through this, my body is becoming quite sensitive to certain things. And the funny thing is I'm really craving junk food. Um, Real fatty foods. It's really interesting. And then last night I thought, you know what? I'll have some hot dogs. And they didn't last. I
No.
didn't I didn't I didn't throw them up, but as soon as the hot dogs, I had three of them because I was pretty hungry. As soon as they hit my stomach went nuts,
Yeah. Yeah, the processed
absolutely
meats are
nuts,
awful. Yeah. Yeah.
and
I
it came out really fast.
yeah. Yeah,
Really,
that's the
really
body
fast.
saying, I'm going to pass. We're getting the good stuff in here, and yeah, next. Yeah. Yeah, sugars.
Oh wow, the
We're,
way it hit me.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're trying to get off sugars again here in the last week ish again, and there's the healthy side of it is if, and I don't know that my wife would agree with me wholeheartedly, but I've read in a couple of places that when the body is craving something, it's craving vitamin C.
It's a parasite.
And
Ah,
but we have really noticed getting off of sugar and everything like that. The body's like, feed me, Seymour, give me sugar, give me that poison, and the carbohydrates, trying to get off the carbs and everything and stay off of it and just stick with meat and vegetables. And it's the paleo. It's the paleo diet. Yeah, the paleo diet makes a
yep.
huge difference. Yeah, I mean, I'm 56, and if I have carbs at lunch, I am toast. 20, 30
Yes.
minutes later,
Yep.
it just knocks me on my
Yep.
ass for an hour, and I just
I'm
want
the
to take a
same.
nap. Don't
Yep.
do it. I don't care whether, as a
Yep.
kid, it didn't affect me, and your metabolism is high, and it's just like, oh yeah, we'll just keep going. But, carbs aren't good for you. They're the reason why we have so many carbs in our diet is because it's cheap for the companies that sell you those things. It's a high profit item. And refined carbs. Thank you. Refined carbs.
Yeah.
It's cheap and you see them everywhere. That's why they call convenience stores food deserts, because all it is refined
Mm-hmm.
carbs. And that's something you
Mm.
need to stay away from. Is this it turns into sugars. Sugar is a poison. And people say, oh well, it's sugar. But these are the things we've been accustomed to and we've been trained into thinking
That's right.
are okay. I'll eat a hot dog afterward. It's quick, or I'll go grab a few slices of meat between
That's
sessions,
right.
type of a thing. But processed meats are awful, awful. And if
Yep.
you eat, and it's something I don't do and I should, you should take grapeseed extract after you eat a heated meal, along with
Hmm.
enzymes, because if you heat a meal over a certain temperature, and I can't remember what it was, it's been about 30 years. The same father-in-law chiropractor gave me this data, and I found it to be true. If you heat food over a certain temperature, you lose the enzymes that allow you to digest it and get all of the proteins and minerals from it that you would otherwise get. Just like if you peel off the skin off of a cucumber. Once you peel that skin off the
Mm.
cucumber, you cannot digest any of the nutrients that are the main part of the cucumber. Same thing with the
Interesting.
potato. The best part of the
Interesting.
potato is the skin. Why?
Interesting.
Why is because when a seed packet known as a piece of fruit falls to the ground, there are the enzymes there that are digesting that whole thing up naturally
Mm.
in order to provide an environment that is suitable for those seeds to get off the ground and grow leaves, and then photosynthesis takes place and now we've got more energy. But until then, that's the piece of luggage that contains the ability for that seed to survive. Seeds don't make it if they lose
Interesting.
the fruit part of it, and they need the enzymes to eat that up in order to provide that environment. Same thing for a human when they eat it.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, and grapeseed
So much
extract helps
sense.
provide a proper environment for the enzymes that you take to eat food that's been heated, because if it's heated over a certain temperature,
Mm.
those enzymes get killed off, quote unquote, killed off. So
Interesting.
there's a whole tech to
Interesting.
all of this stuff. But if you don't have a Purif to get rid of all of this crap that's in your system first, it's a lot harder to metabolize this stuff as the pipes get clogged and you get into your, well, today you get into your 20s forward, all the stuff you've been introduced to in the food system, the cheap foods, high profit, low quality, cheap
Mm-hmm.
foods, well, and has 60 ingredients or 40 ingredients instead of peanuts, or,
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
because they make more
Yep.
money off of selling you GMO or selling you some chemical contrivance of whatever the flavor is
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be, well, it's going to end up in your bloodstream and it's going to harm your auditing. I'm sorry, this may sound crazy, but it's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Chemicals are chemicals. Doesn't matter.
Interesting. I might have a small remedy for you if you're game around battling your sugar addiction. I did this years ago and it worked a charm because even around sugar, there's the addiction itself, but then there's also parasites that love sugar.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
then, yep.
and
I'm aware.
when you look into the parasite world, they're very compelling and they're very influential on our bodies. And the funny thing about the sugar parasite is it lives on the brain, right? That's where the sugar parasite lives. Now, in order for it to be fed, it actually sends signals to your brain, sending you cravings for sugar so it can feed itself. Yeah. So it pushes you. Yeah. The parasite literally manipulates you. It controls you to eat sugar. And that's why sometimes when you eat sugar, you feel really rank afterwards because the parasite has made its host feed it. And now the host has to deal with the leftovers.
Right. Because it got what it wanted and it's kicked you to the curb.
Exactly. If you haven't looked into parasites, it's really scary to look into, just a heads up. But there's one thing you can do, right? So as compelling as they are, they're pretty stupid too. So
well, Candida,
so there's this,
is part of that.
Okay, yeah, sure. And urine, again, is really good for Candida. Just saying. But anyway.
Yeah, and that goes along with these fungus that attack ants and other insects and things like that and turn them into zombies and
that's
then
right.
throw out their seed pod out the top of their heads and kill the host. And I mean, you look at, like you say, you look into that stuff and you go, oh, what? This is
freaky.
Really happening. I'm surprised it doesn't happen to human bodies,
And it probably does.
Yeah, it probably does. Yeah. Yeah. So, it's a word of caution when you go down that rabbit hole.
and the microscopic images of these things, they just look like aliens.
Yeah.
And just on that, do you remember the War of the Worlds from the 70s, the double album feature?
You mean the original one? The original one that came out that was on the radio?
Yeah,
with
from the 70s.
Yeah.
After when they did the was it Orson Welles? The musical, it was like a double album of it, really famous.
Yeah, well, the original one that was on the radio with Orson Welles, people jumped out of windows because they didn't say that this is a fictional work that we are broadcasting on the radio. They just did it as, ladies and gentlemen,
yes.
And people flipped out.
yes. Well, at the end of that story, what killed the aliens? Parasites from the birds.
Yeah. Yep.
It's the same thing for us. But what you can do, and it's entirely up to you whether you choose to do this, but I guarantee you it works a charm. So you take a spoonful of sugar and 1 to 2 drops of turpentine. And then you put 1 or 2 drops on the spoonful of sugar. You don't need much. Yeah, you're not drinking a glass of terps or anything like that. It's 1 or 2 drops, literally. And what that does, it turns the sugar into like a rat bait, right? So when you consume it, the parasites go ape shit over the sugar, but you've poisoned it, end up poisoning the parasites, and you will feel it in your head. You'll feel it. This weird flush will happen as they're dying, and your craving will reduce almost instantly.
See, it's basically a can of Raid for this, almost a fungus in a way.
Yep. It doesn't taste so bad going down, but when you burp, it's pretty amazing how 1 or 2 drops
is
of
there.
terps
Yeah.
is really noticeable.
Yeah. I believe
Yeah,
it.
like it sounds weird, but it works a treat. And then ever since I did that, and I did that years ago, sugar's easy to avoid.
Yeah,
Easy to avoid.
it's once you got it, you're hooked and you got it in your system, then you think, well, this is just how it is. This is the norm. That's the baseline now, and you would never ever suspect. Which brings us back to the Purif, is that your baseline changes and you're not aware that it's changed, but boy has it.
And yeah, yeah. Well, I'm really struggling at the moment around what I could eat. I have to say, I'm really struggling with that.
Yeah, I had the same
And
thing.
it's gonna, yeah, like my cravings for food, I'm afraid to eat to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
Because
was
I
too.
don't know what's gonna happen.
What's acceptable and what's not. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
So
it's
today,
err in the direction of as healthy as possible.
today the only craving I have is meat, and that's all I'm gonna eat. I'm not gonna have anything other than just the meat. That's it. I'm not gonna have vegetables with it. I'm not gonna have anything else other than just salt seasoned meat.
Yeah.
I think I can handle that.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do another podcast once you get
Mm.
done, and we're going to have sort of a early on before and then an after and see
Yeah, yeah. Maybe this
what you
time next week
experienced.
we'll do an update
Yeah.
and see what's happened in the next 7 days.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, thanks for
Actually,
sharing your
one more thing.
experiences on it.
I know we've gone way over time, but one more thing I've noticed that you might be able to help me with is so it's one thing the during the sauna time, but then stuff occurs outside of the sauna as well.
Yeah, that's typical.
And for the last few nights, I've been getting these weird muscle spasms
Mm-hmm.
and cramps
Mm-hmm.
really bad.
Yeah.
I'll move my leg a certain way, and then it's just like, oh my god,
Yeah.
stop.
You need to take more potassium, and I would recommend
CalMag.
uh
Okay.
I would recommend bananas and coconut water. That's
Yeah, yeah.
what's
And I've
happening
been doing
is there
those.
isn't there do you need more of them. I've
Okay.
had cramps when I was drumming, you know, went out to do a live gig and I sweat so much. I had cramps that I was screaming in the middle of the
Yeah.
night because my legs from drumming double bass and all that stuff, it is no fun. And potassium, bananas, coconut water, the quickest to metabolize. Forget about tablets.
Mm,
Use the natural things.
okay.
Excuse me. Oh yeah, and obviously magnesium, CalMag. More CalMag is going to help as well.
Yeah, I'm
Drink
thinking.
it slowly.
Yeah.
Drink it slowly. And another thing you can
Oh,
take is, I don't know if they have it in Australia, is the product called Emergency, which is a powder in a little packet. They sell them all over the place in the United States. You can get them at Walmart now in boxes. Emergency is an incredibly good product. Comes in a lot of different flavors. It's effervescent. You put it in just put it in some spring water,
uh,
stir it up, drink it slowly so that the body doesn't get too much and throws it out. And that as well, if
like
you
a
can get it.
hydrolyte.
Yeah, that's basically
Is it?
what it is.
Yeah.
We have that
Okay.
here too in
Okay.
South Africa. The same
Okay.
product does the same thing. Tastes good. Just make sure you drink it slowly.
Hmm.
I use two because I'm a pretty big guy, but any of and all of that stuff is great afterwards. And get a lot of rest. Get as much sleep as
Yeah.
you can. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's easy to sleep. It was for me when I was
At the
younger,
moment, it is minus the
except for the
occasional midnight
cramps.
cramp.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's funny you say that because I was thinking of, I don't know, just inside my head, it was like maybe I need more CalMag.
Yeah,
So tomorrow
it
I'll
helps, but
increase it.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I would see if you can get more coconut water to take with you. Then, it gets to a
Mm-hmm.
point to where you need two or three of those. I use the tall They don't have them here in South Africa, but they have them in the U.S. I don't know if they have them in Australia, but they're the tall boxes that you can get. That it's just coconut
Yes.
water, none of the additives. Maybe if you want
Yes.
pineapple or whatever, get 2 or 3 of those because you're going to go from 1 to 2 to 3 as you go on, and that will help replace all of that stuff. And it takes you from feeling wilted to feeling like I can power through this no problem and do 4 hours.
Sure.
And if you're outside working and you're not doing a Purif, take some coconut water with you or a banana. Either way, but the coconut water, working outside for 25 years like I did, always was the solution to I cannot go on anymore to, okay, I got this. Every time. It was always potassium and magnesium. So.
Okay. Yeah, I've been doing all 3. So I've been doing bananas, water, and coconut water. So outside of the sauna, I'll have my coconut water and water, because sometimes too much coconut water can be a bit overbearing as well.
It's
so then
true.
I've got normal water. True. Yeah. So I've got a mix of all 3. And the bananas, I haven't eaten this many bananas in years.
Yeah. The banana is almost a perfect fruit. I mean, like Bear Grylls and Survivor Man say, whatever it is that you need, if there's a venomous spider that bites you in any place that you are, within 50 feet, there is a solution to that venom. And bananas and coconuts provide that in a tropical environment for the things that you need. It's a very interesting universe when it comes to flora and fauna and bodies, but sometimes just regular old water does the trick. But don't fight going to the bathroom. If you have to go to the bathroom 1 or 2 while you're in the sauna, go. Don't hold on to it. You got to, because the body's saying, get this stuff out of here.
I tell you right now, there's no choice in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm afraid to fart, John.
Yeah. Yes, I remember that very well too. You don't want to shart in the sauna because it screws up the timeline of everything and the smell as well. So.
And it's funny though, because in the sauna it's not an issue. It's after the sauna where it becomes an issue.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Word of caution: do not trust flatulence for being just flatulence when you're on the Purif.
It's full on. It's full on. Yeah.
Well, anyway, we'll go ahead and end this off. We hope you guys have enjoyed this as a podcast. A lot of great, valuable data here. And Purification Rundown is available through AOGP. You can do it in your from home. If you have an infrared sauna or you have a gym, we can get you through it. You don't have to come into an org to do it. We can get you through it standardly. People say, well, wait a minute, that's not standard. Well, I got news for you. You can do this and it can be done, and you don't have to go into a corporate Church of Scientology to do it. We can get you through it and you can get a lot out of it, as Arthur's been telling you here. So anything before we go, Arthur?
No, we've covered an enormous amount of content this evening.
Okay. We'll see you all tomorrow. We're going to do another podcast one way or the other. Hope you enjoyed this, and we will see you then. Namaste, and we love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.